Okay, so now we're going to talk about traversing arrays, but using enhanced for loops, which is something in Java that allows you to traverse an array, or you'll find out later array lists and other kinds of collections without having to specify any indices. So let's go back and look at a couple of the examples from the last video. Say we're traversing an array just to print out its values. Well, here's a standard for loop that's traversing an array forward. We made it last time. Instead, we could use an enhanced for loop and say for int temp colon data, and then say system.out .println or print line, not data, we want to print temp. So what this does is it takes this temporary variable, you can call it temp, you can call it anything, of the type of the array data. Temp takes on each value in data one at a time. So this array allows you to just go through the elements one at a time. You can see how this can be really useful when you're printing things out like this. As long as you're printing it out forward, it'll run pretty nicely. We can do a similar thing here where we're trying to find the sum of the elements in an array. We can say int total equals 0. Use an enhanced for loop. Int temp data, and we can say total equals total plus temp. And now we have an enhanced for loop that does the same thing as our original for loop. This example, we're creating this method that's getting us the index of the first negative. So I don't want to rewrite all this, so I'm going to copy it. And paste it. Actually, I think I may need a little bit more space, so let me reduce this one a little. Negative there. There we go. So, using an enhanced for loop, here's an interesting thing. In this case, we will have to create the variable. So in this case, I'll say index equals 0. And then for int temp colon data, so we're going to go through each element. And we're going to say if temp is less than 0, return index. Otherwise, index plus plus, and then at the end, outside the for loop, we'll do the return -1. We'll close off our over there. And so this would be an enhanced for loop using the enhanced for loop to find the index of the first negative. And note, this is probably not the right way to go if you're trying to return an index. This one up here is probably a better choice because the index is part of it. So enhanced for loops are really useful, but don't overuse them because sometimes a regular loop is the way to go. But for something like this, and especially for this, an enhanced for loop is absolutely the right thing to do. And if we were rewriting this so that this method, instead of, let's say, instead of returning the index, the value of the first negative number in the array data. And then now we'd want to say, we don't want to return -1 because that could be the value. So we'll say return 0 if there are no negative values. So now we're returning a value instead of an index. And now an enhanced for loop makes total sense because now we can say for int temp : data if temp is less than 0, return temp. And if we get all the way through the loop and we haven't done that, then we return 0. And I should also note that enhanced for loops work with other things besides integers. We could have like string array words equals right? So we have an array of strings here, and I could say for string s : words. Again, the s is going to take on each value in words. And this enhanced for loop would print out help, then the next line I, then the next line m, and the next line lost, because s would take on each value in the array. So it works. They work for strings and ints and every other kind of object and primitive that you'd like.